Everyone, we're going to start a chapter. We're going to briefly go through chapter 11 before we go to 13. 13 is about graphing lines and really does some of the prep work for next year that's heavily done in algebra. Chapter 11 is, I think you guys know how to graph already. I would imagine you guys know how to graph already as far as dealing with points and so forth on a graph. But this just kind of warms us up to graph paper again. I would think that it would be very important to use graph paper. Certainly if you have graph paper at home, I recommend using it. If you don't have graph paper at home, I recommend maybe printing it or ordering a graphing notebook from Amazon. You're going to be using graphing for a large portion of the next 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. So this first section, chapter 11.1, is on translations. I'm just going to introduce the idea. Before I do, notice in my notebook, I've divided my notebook into 4 parts. That's so I can do 4 problems, okay? Then in each part, draw a little Cartesian plane. So this would get marked with an X coordinate and a Y coordinate. So this is an X axis, a Y axis. I'm gonna put a label on the second one here saying that that's a unit of 2. And I'm going to go on the y-axis and also put a label on the second one and say that's a unit of 2. That kind of implies that everything else is a unit of 1. So in other words, this point here would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. This point would be 0.5, 1. All right, we always list our x first and our y second. Our x is our axis across, our y is our axis up and down. In alphabetical order, X, Y. All right, so the idea of translations. If you have a shape, or even a point, or a line, a translation of that is to take that shape and move it somewhere else. Now, a translation strictly is sliding the item. So if it started here, we might slide it to the right and slide it down to get somewhere else. But the original shape and the new shape are not rotated to one another. This is not a translation anymore of this. Okay, it needs to stay in this orientation and it needs to stay in its size. You can't change its size. All right, that's not a translation anymore. That's something else. All right, you also can't flip it. All right, so this is not a translation of what we had a minute ago. It's not a translation of this. All right, translations strictly are sliding. So that means the lines of the new shape or the image of the original shape, the corresponding lines have to be parallel. So that hypotenuse there winds up parallel to the new hypotenuse if it's a translation. Let's just do a quick example of a translation with some numbers. Let's say we have a line that goes from, let's say it goes from this point to this point. Say it goes from here to here. So here's a line. This is just a quick example of a translation. So this line goes from 5, 1 to 2, 4. This point is 2 in the x direction, 4 in the y direction. Now, if we wanted to translate this, let's say we wanted to translate it left 4 units, left 3 units, and we want to translate it down 5 units. Okay, so we would take this point and we would go to the left 1, 2, 3 and down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would come to here. And then we would take this point and we would go left 3 units. 1, 2, 3 and down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if I've done this properly, the line between these 2 points, notice I'm using a ruler to keep things neat. The line between these 2 points should be parallel. The line should be the same length. This point here becomes 2, the y is -4. All right, now notice, The left 3 subtracts 3, a value of 3 from 5 to get to 2, because we went left 3 units. And the down 5 subtracts 5 from 1. 1 minus 5 becomes -4. So we can get this point the same way from this point. This 2 means we have to go to the left 3. So this winds up 2 minus 3. That equals -1. So the x value here is -1. And down 5, we started at 4. So 4 minus 5 also is -1. And lo and behold, this point is at -1, 1. So that's just a quick introduction of how transformations work. You could transform any kind of shape, right? As long as when you do it, you transform it in a parallel sort of way. In other words, you're just moving up and sideways. You're not rotating. You're not flipping. Okay, so translations. Slide the item around. All right, it's an important concept for later on.